Hey, everybody. Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and welcome back to another edition of Save It for the Cast. And as per usual, I'm going to be kicking the ball over to this week. It's just going to be Randall and I chatting some mostly retro stuff, kind of leaning into the Shinobi and Sega stuff that we talked just last week or last regular episode. I guess both, both of those things. But yeah, also leaning into some analog discussion with that new Analogue Duo, I think it's called, the new like Turbo Graphics, Turbo Duo, I guess I should say, console from them. Randall's talked a bunch and praised the analog consoles. We talked primarily, I feel like, about the Analog Pocket, but I feel like we've talked about quite a few of their consoles, and I feel like I've missed my chance. I'm just going to have to live vicariously through Randall with a lot of those platforms. But before I kick the ball over to our kind of, retro-themed chit-chat, I got to lean into some of the stuff that I've been playing lately, and I got to say this week's been pretty crazy. I got like a flat tire the other day. This was while I was cruising around, basically just driving around to charge my phone while we were out of power. It's been like the first 90-degree weather here in Michigan for like a consistent stretch, and I think it said the reason for the power outage was just equipment failure, so I got to think that it was just everybody cranking their AC, overloading the grid, and yeah, we were out of power for almost 48 hours on the dot, pretty much. So 2 full days, and then while I was out cruising around charging my phone, got a flat tire, went to change the tire. Everything seems to be okay, although actually the other day I hopped in and I had the low tire pressure sensor on, so I was like, oh god, this is just a crazy week, but hopefully we'll have our I was already thinking like, oh man, are we gonna have to miss a Monday release of the podcast for the first time ever? I guess we didn't start on Mondays, but we've released a weekly episode ever since we very first started the podcast. We have yet to miss one, knock on wood to not totally jinx it here. But yeah, on that note, before, I was very thankful that the power outage was not the week before, because we just wrapped up our Pursuing Pixels James Jam Game Gam, the second annual, and we had pretty much almost the same amount of people participate in the same amount of games as last year. We had 225 or something like that join, so about 25 more than last year, and then we had 50 games on the dot get submitted. I played almost all of them on a stream. I'll link those in the episode description here. And I'll also link, I'm not going to link every individual game that I mentioned here. I'm going to kind of give some shout outs of some of my favorites, but I will put a link to like the submissions tab so you can check out some of these for yourself. But we just had so many awesome games. Again, it's just absolutely blows my mind what people can do over the course of a week. And I know one of the games that we really kind of gave some love to last time was Jetbox. And Jetbox 2 from the same developer, Sapazu, was submitted this time around. And I know he's already cranking out a post-jam update that's added in. Unfortunately, he didn't get around to adding in like sound effects and music and stuff for the jam build. And I think beyond adding that into this new version, I think he's added like some new enemies and some new mechanics and stuff. So already the new version of Jetbox 2 is same idea, like single screen arcade gameplay. And the theme for the game jam this year was penalized. Last year it was permanence. But in both regards, I feel like it was like kind of a perfect way to sequelize that game. I've been kind of waiting for like a Jetbox like post jam update of the first one, and now this is like, okay, not only did we get Jetbox 2, but we got a souped up post jam version of it. So that was one of my standout favorites for sure. Another one of my standout favorites. These are all just some of my standout favorites, but Beep Boop. It was a really cool like Bubble Bobble inspired game with a really heavy, I don't know if it's 100% true to ZX Spectrum, but it's very much got that like Commodore ZX Spectrum aesthetic going on. And again, very similar to Bubble Bobble, but you can play up to 2 players that had like 12 levels. Same kind of mechanics. You're like jumping around. You can, just shooting enemies with like you play as this little robot. And I'm a big fan of this developer. They do a bunch of like ZX Spectrum inspired stuff, and I'm always such a huge fan of their visual aesthetic. Again, I was just so thrilled to see like the quality of games being submitted during this game jam, and from a lot of my favorite developers. And another one of my favorite developers, Kevin Cole over at Super Try, who we've had on the podcast and interviewed during a stream and stuff, checking out some of their games. Submitted a game called Wizard Laws Are Meant to Be Broken, or maybe it's Made to Be Broken. But a really cool side-scrolling puzzle platformer. They made a game last year as well called Blink Blanc, which was more of a Metroidvania puzzle platformer. This is more like side-scrolling, really cool, like kind of 8-bit-ish aesthetic. It's not necessarily like an NES style or anything, but just kind of chunky, but like low-res, small sprites. Just really cool. And like every stage essentially changes the wizard laws. So like when you're touching this certain box, when you jump, it that, you know, causes you to jump extra high. It's almost like a springboard or something like that. But then you can even rewrite some of the laws in some of the later stages. I made it to what I think was the final stage, just based on how the puzzles were ramping up and, you know, the duration of the jam being a week long. Although you never know with Kevin Cole and the Super Try team. They just crank out, like, again, Blink Blanc was just a massive, I mean, a mini Metroidvania, but a pretty good size one for the fact that it was made over the course of a week. But yeah, I was really into this one, really loved the music as well. Another game that really stood out and got a lot of love was a game called Therapy. It was like kind of like a deck building, although it didn't, I believe they're planning on, I know they're planning on expanding on this game. It was actually two teams that made games last time. They made Produce Plaza and Bun Bun Battlefield. They're leaning into that alliteration. I love it. But they formed a singular team of like 6 or 7 people. And they made this game called Therapy. And it's, kind of like a deck building puzzle strategy game where you're like just tending to your plants and you got to manage like the sunlight, the soil, and the water. And then every card, you know, some of them are like, you know, +2 water, but -1 soil. Like there's all various types of cards, and just had so much love put into like the visual aesthetic. And again, just managing a team of 6 or 7 people is just an achievement in and of itself. Just absolutely crazy. I know I gave some love to a game called Clockwork Kingdom on the podcast from a developer, Jamie Rowan. I'm a huge fan of their stuff, and they made a game for the Game Jam called Insane Chicane. I think I'm saying that correctly. Kind of like a top-down racing game that you play. They said it kind of like designed it to be like played with touchscreens for like mobile potentially in the future. But playing it with the mouse, you kind of like just click and drag, almost like kind of like a wind-up toy, or like some of those cars where you like pull them back and then release them and they kind of, you know, start rolling in the opposite direction. It kind of works more like that. And then you kind of click and drag in different directions or in this case, you know, if you're playing on a touchscreen, you'd be more like kind of swiping as opposed to clicking and holding. But kind of like swiping to do drifting and turning. And again, they're making a post-jam version of this, or they seem to be working on it. They've shared a couple snippets with me and a few on Twitter, and like they're going like full 3D now. It kind of had this faux like top-down 2D, 3D aesthetic going on, and now it's like kind of looking full 3D, almost like kind of reminds me of the old like Micro Machines games or something like that, but more like, you know, like actual 3D. And it just looks so cool. So I'm really excited to see that. We also saw quite a few Pico 8 entries. Got a game called Mail Runner, which was a really cool and a really good take on the theme of being penalized every time you like got through, or basically every time you delivered a package, you got like a new penalty, one of like 3 that you would pick from, and it'd be like sticky shoes or slippery shoes or high jump or low jump. I forget what all the different debuffs were essentially, but yeah, it's kind of like one giant level. You could either take like the low road or the high road. I think I talked about a game called Bunny Eats on the podcast a long time ago, and it kind of reminded me of that game, but really just had some really cool, bright, snappy visuals and controls. A little bit slippery on the controls, but that was like part of the charm of the game. Like just the way the camera kind of snaps around and your ponytail's like flailing in the wind as you run around, and you can open up the sewers after you deliver a couple packages. So there's like a low road you can take. It's just such a cool, charming game. I really love it from the developer No. I'm a huge fan of their stuff, NOH that is. And then a couple other games from a couple other Pico 8 developers. I guess one Pico 8 developer specifically, and then one other developer I'm a big fan of. But Sebastian Lind made a game called Cardfully. It's kind of like a puzzle platformer. This one was really tough. I really want to go back to this one because on the stream I was like, I'm stumped right now. I gotta pick this one up when I have another chance. You basically draw like a hand of cards that either move you forward, backward. Again, it's like a side-scrolling platformer, or jump, and then you kind of can tweak the values of those between 1 and 4, and then kind of, you know, make sure you're jumping over the stairs or jumping over this lava pit or whatever it might be. And then, not a Pico 8 developer, but our pal Turd Boomerang, and then they teamed up with their partner Protractor and made a game called Smited, a really cool arcadey. They called it like a god smiting simulator. But it's just like a top-down farm. I shouldn't say just, but it's like a top-down farming game where you really have like kind of on a decent time limit. Like at first I'm thinking like any game where I'm watching the time go down, I'm just like, oh my God, I got to do things as fast as I can, get this over with. Okay, go. Whereas this game, it's like, okay, you actually do have like 180 seconds or 90 seconds, whatever it was. It's like more time than you think. So at first, once I realized, and once I fixed the control issues I was having, I had like my anti-micro software. So it was like kind of double inputting everything I pressed on the controller. So once we got that all figured out, it's like, okay, everything seems to be working properly. These streams were just so much fun. I had a little help figuring out what was causing the problem there, because we were like, everyone was mentioning there were a few bugs with this game, but nothing quite like I was having at the start. But once we got things figured out, and then I started doing a little exploring, and there's like these goblins that start like coming out of the woodworks, and you can like dig up various like artifacts and treasure. It almost had like a little Ancient Aliens kind of flavor going on. I was really, really loving that game. There was another game called Volley, which was kind of like a single screen, kind of reminded me of like Downwell aesthetically, but probably just because it was sort of like 1-bit visually, but it's almost like, it was kind of like a kickball hacky sack sort of game. And yeah, the hacky sack is actually a pretty good comparison as far as the game gameplay goes, but it's kind of like you're just like in these single screen rooms with these enemies, and you just had to like jump and hit this ball or kick it or punch it, and every time you kick the ball, it would give you your jump back, or your kind of like air dash was how the kick almost worked, kind of like a massive dash kind of essentially. And you could just, I don't know, it just felt so satisfying. There was just like a little bit of aim assist, it felt like. So if you didn't have to like perfectly, like, I don't know, with Hacky Sack, that game got like so hard. You had to like nail the shot. Like it had like almost like perfect 360 aiming. So it was like you had to be like too perfect in your execution, where this was like just made you feel awesome at the game every time you played it. And then the game that there's many other games I could give a shout out to, but the other game that kind of just took the cake as far as like the Game Jam contest win, it was definitely one of my favorites as well, was The Adventures of Mouthman, from Retrocade Media, and they had a couple partners with them as well on this one. But just a really awesome, like super fun 3D platformer. And it's just mind blowing that they made this game in a week. It's kind of like a low res PS1 aesthetic, and they did a really good job of like kind of putting some 2D pixel art sprites into not only like the textures on the walls and stuff, but even the collectibles, and just the perspective of like the text and the way it worked, and had a little bit of like twin stick mechanics. You could like kind of like spit out some vomit or barf or something that would like slow down certain platforms and like kind of goo things up. And there were just a bunch of little like extra paths you could take, a couple little hidden Easter eggs. It was just such an enjoyable experience from top to bottom. And I just had so much fun playing all these games. Again, I could mention probably almost every one of them. I mean, there were definitely some better than others, of course, but man, I just had so much fun streaming these games, and I really can't wait to do the next Game Jam. Like I said, I'll put some links in the video description to the streams we did, or not the video description, but the episode description here, to the streams we did and to the submission, so you can check out some of the games for yourself, because I'm really looking forward to some of these post-jam updates, but even some of the games, as is from the Game Jam version, and some of the post-jam updates are already live. But yeah, I just really can't say enough awesome things. It was just such a pleasure to host this. Everybody was just so supportive and friendly once again. It's just, it just really got me extra motivated again, and just like, it just gets me so pumped up. It's such a great way to kind of kick off the summer. But yeah, I've done way more rambling than usual here, so I'm going to cut myself off here and kick it over to Randall and I for the retro chit chat. And until next week, we'll catch you then, and take care and take it easy. Yeah, when I was talking to Mark and the Ninja, like right when I was about to switch to Shinobi, I was like, it got so hot in here all of a sudden. I was like sweating like an animal. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to have a second to wipe this off. Worked out okay.
Yes,
but man, yeah, I'm loving Shinobi, man.
That's I'm glad that you finally gave that a shot, because that's a game that I'm always like, no, people need to play this Shinobi 3. It's not like the other ones. Like, it kind of is, but it's its own thing.
Because, like, I kind of almost, like, lumped in, like, the Shinobi series with, like, you play Golden Axe, and you're like, okay, cool, this is an early beat-em-up, but, like, I don't, it's not doing anything I need to play again, and kind of felt that way when I played Shinobi, too.
Right.
The early ones, and just like, okay, yeah, early Sega games, these are just, like, what people played in the early days, is what they had. And then Shinobi 3 is like, no, this is sweet.
Even though people, like, of those early games, a lot of people swear by Revenge of Shinobi, the second game, as like one of the best early Genesis games for what. But I'll honestly say I've never really given it the time of day either.
And to be fair, I've not given any of it. Like, I've popped them all in, I think, and tried them briefly when I bought them, whenever, but don't think I've ever like played more than the first stage.
Yeah. But Shinobi 3 is just like let's fucking go. Like this is my jam.
Yeah. It was almost like the development team was like, we need to, this series doesn't have enough love. Like we need to make sure like this is cemented as like a classic.
Just add some action juice to it like they did with Resident Evil 4 compared to earlier Resident Evils. Like let's fucking go. That's a good point.
It is kind of a similar, like just up the ante a little bit. Add a little more action, a little more enemies, a little more just movement on the screen.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, I used to be so put off by games that had like big sprites like that. Like just like, it's so hard to see what's going on. Too much action on the screen. Like it just gets a little cluttered feeling or claustrophobic. But that game doesn't at all.
They nailed it.
Speed feels great. Yeah.
Which makes sense because they had released so many games by that point. They know what works for like the ratio of the size of your character versus the overall screen, you know?
Yeah.
1993. Genesis came out in 89.
Late era, yeah. Man, it's good stuff. I actually was pretty impressed too. I turned on just to see how, I forgot, like ever since I noticed that you could do all those different things on the Game Boy, like put it on the Game Boy Color screen or the Game Boy Pocket. On the like Genesis, they have like CRT filters and like pixel perfect filters. Like, it's really subtle, but I was like, this looks kind of nice.
Yeah.
Kind of like recaptured that feeling of like, okay, I can kind of picture what this looked like on, on the TV I would have played it on back in the day.
On the CRT that I would have had it connected by like the RF cables, like not even the RCA cables, but the RF cables.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. Ugh. I hated doing that with the NES. Like,
I would daisy chain them all together. That's how I got everything to stay like hooked up where I could just like now, same deal, but I was like 8.
But just like, okay, channel 3 is the video game channel, baby.
Yep. Channel 3, and I could just put the game in, press the button. I could play one of the 3 systems hooked up because I daisy chained them all together with RF.
That's pretty awesome, actually. Yeah. I never quite even, like, I'd hooked it up a few times, but I never really understood. I never knew you could, like, multiple, but that makes sense.
Just like
chain them up.
Yeah, because, like, I have, like, NES and then Genesis and N64 even sold an adapter for RF, and then Dad's, like, cable into the back of the last one so that everything still worked, and like and maybe the VCR, if there was one, was in there somewhere too, and like it all flowed together.
That's funny. I kind of forgot about that. Because I only ever had to do it with my NES. Hooking it up, but man,
that's how you make
that
it
top
work.
loader definitely makes a difference.
Oh, hell
the top loader. No, the top loader only has the RF, doesn't it?
Yes, it did out of the box. Yeah,
like you got to get the mod or whatever.
Yeah. But out of the box, it was RF only. But like the advantages of like how the games booted outweighed the visual impact almost.
Yeah, that alone, the bootage is just alone worth
night and day.
It's crazy.
Night and day.
I haven't used mine in years, so who knows if it still is on this level, but I remember when I got it, I was just like, all my games work again. I don't have an annoying, like playing retro games, getting to the point of having fun. There's no annoying steps anymore getting in my way.
Hey, speaking of that,
NES, which is cool.
Did you see the analog news?
I did. I saw somebody post it because they were like, oh yeah, I'll buy this when it comes out. And then they like retweeted themselves like, well, fuck, I guess I got to buy it now.
Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m.
Pre-orders. Is it? It's the Duo, right?
Yep.
It's like everything.
My bullshit. I have to try to get it because it's
only $250, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the price I saw. Not that that's like not a decent chunk of change, but I mean that's a reasonable price. I feel, especially since it's doing the disc too.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised.
Expecting it to be a little more. Yeah,
I was a little surprised by that price point. Considering the disc drive on top of the HuCard slot or whatever. Like
and just that it's like a little more of a niche thing. Like they're probably not going to sell as many of them as they would for like a Super Nintendo or or whatever. So I could be wrong. Maybe there's a huge audience out there, but I'm guessing it's not the same size. So.
I wouldn't imagine. And it sounds like on top of that, it won't have the capability that the other ones do to play other cores like other systems. It'll just be for the sake of PC Engine, TurboGrafx, and all the CD variants of those systems.
Okay.
Super graphics too, like all that family of like NEC
anything in that
systems.
vein.
Yeah.
Definitely cool. Definitely something that, that's for you got to be immensely like no brainer.
But it's one of the last ones to like to replace, like, there's nothing wrong with my Turbo Duo, but like I got it modded and I still like, there's kind of like a hissing sound like when you turn it on, just like an underlying like, which, you know, in some ways is kind of cool. Like this is a cool like living analog experience or whatever. But on the other side, it's like it'd be nice to not have that happen, and like to also boot up whatever ROM I wanted on the fly, and like unlimited save potential without worrying about this old hardware and all the other things. And it works great with those 8-bit DOE turbo controllers that they put out, you know, out of the box. Like all that stuff is worth it to me. You know?
Have the option to hook it up to a modern TV, like
easily,
without any hassles at all. No like input lag like you get with most in emulator stuff. Exactly. Yeah. Just man, I gotta spring for like all those at some point, even though I missed my chance on many of them. But that turbo one, especially since it's like I don't have a turbo, you know, and honestly, you probably would spend about that much if just getting a regular one. So it's like you might as well
at least
get this modern thing that's got all the bells and whistles, like you said, just be able to play. Because obviously I wouldn't be able to, if I sprung for the system, I wouldn't be then like, okay, I just spent $250. Let me go spend hundreds more dollars on all the cool games I want to get.
Right. Know? That are now.
So it'd be cool to like, okay, let me just play some emulators or, you know, ROMs for now.
ROMs on like what's made to be as like arcade, like as hardware accurate as possible, while also having the layer of all of like the modern operating system bells and whistles on top of it.
Like those even just those menus and stuff like you were describing, or like I saw even with the Pocket, like even just like it's nothing crazy, but it's just slick. It just adds that like, oh man, this is like a user interface. You know, it's just a device. It's not just a thing that can play games. It's like an all encompassing machine. I don't know. Just it makes it feel so much more cool.
And one of the adapters for the Analog Pocket is going to be a HuCard adapter, so it'll work like a Turbo Express, you know.
Like, that's awesome.
So
that's really cool.
There'll be a nice little combo that way, assuming I can be one of the 15 people that gets this thing tomorrow at 8 a.m. We'll see what happens.
Set that alarm, baby. Set that alarm.
I already did. I set it yesterday when I okay, this is happening. I need to.
Well, I mean, at least on the off chance, I'm thinking you'll be able to get it. I'm hoping.
I'm pretty good at it. I'm kind of a sicko with this sort of stuff.
But at least there's that backup plan of like you could play the HuCard stuff on your TV with the analog. Like at first I was like, oh, it's kind of bummer it'd only be handheld, but no, you could hook it up to the dock and play on TV. So at least you technically could have a roundabout. Only the turbo wouldn't be the
The CD stuff, not so much. And to be fair, there was a lot of Super CD stuff released. A lot of it, like half of the library I have is CD, because a lot of the mid generation to late stuff was all put on CD. Yeah. There's some really cool games on that platform. Oh man, awesome on both platforms or whatever. But that's and so many that I've just only dabbled in the stuff that I ever bought on Wii, pretty much. Because I've never even bothered downloading like an emulator for TurboGrafx or whatever. So man, that's tempting. That's great really stuff. Tempting, actually. Fucking Analog. I'll let you know how it goes. If best of luck, man. I hope that goes. We'll see what happens smoothly and full success. Because if anybody deserves that console, I feel like it's you. I've been sticking with it for a while. And you've been supporting like Analog through all. Like getting every release they've had along the way. It's like, okay. I'm actually almost surprised that they don't have like kind of like a priority list of like, oh, these are the like people that are whatever. But then they'd probably complain though, because you'd think a lot of like the retro shops and stuff would just people. Bulk them out. Just buy them all up and But I see what you mean, because I have all of them besides the original Super. Yeah, you think you'd get like first dibs on like hey, like kind of like season tickets at like for sports. Right. Like if you already have season tickets, you get first dibs on them next year or something. Kind of seems like that. Like, hey, you bought the last one, okay, you get first dibs before we sell out or whatever. But either way, I hope since there's less demand, but because there's less demand, they're making less of them. So fingers crossed they have a decent pulse on like the amount of them to make. We'll see how it goes for the demand. I want one. It's one of the last pieces.
Yeah, that'll round out that like modern retro setup pretty dang nice, man.
Especially for the systems that I have a crap ton of games for. Like
Right.
that's kind of the last one.
Yeah, because what else would there even be
Like
that's not replaced?
Like a Saturn or a Dreamcast type of one, I guess.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
those are kind of fine as they are. It's comparatively. So
yeah, it's like if they made some kind of all-in-one
N64?
Sega machine, sure, but yeah.
Like maybe, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be like, I love the 64, but I wouldn't even be like there's something about those 2D systems or more 2D systems that just call my name a little bit more.
Yeah, same.
Probably just because I have more games for them. Like, I don't have as much love for the 64 library as much as I love a lot of those games. Like, I just feel like I'd be using I wouldn't use it as much. I barely busted out my 64 when I had all my retro stuff set up anyways. It's more like party mode, like when we were playing with you and John the other day. Like, oh, let's play some games because we got 4 people and this is what works, you know?
Yeah, that's my experience too. And it doesn't help its cause that, like, not only is the Nintendo Switch Online a thing, but also a lot of those best games got ported for better versions on other Nintendo systems. So it's like it's a double whammy that way.
Or they have like a lot of the tracks in the new Mario Kart game.
Yeah.
You know, there's like new ways to relive those games now. So it's like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So that's kind of what that came down to. But
yeah,
it's coming out tomorrow. Analogue Duo. We'll see what happens.
Heck yeah. We'll see how long those are in the works too after the pre-orders, like how long it takes them to come in.
Hey, they say they're going to ship them this year. So
oh wow, heck
not terribly, you know.
That's awesome.
It kind of makes sense because I think they announced it like over a year ago. It's been a while. The wait has been to get to this point to be able to even give them money for it. So
right. Yeah, that tweet that I saw was like I thought it was even older than that. Like I thought it was like 3 years old where they're like, I'll buy this when it comes out.
It's been a while.
Just like teasing it, and they were like, oh shit, the day has arrived.
Yeah.
So
a long while.
It's cool to see Analog just keep chipping away. I'm kind of rooting for them, even though I see some backlash about them every once in a while.
Yeah,
they're stealing everybody's emulators and just putting them on here, not paying anybody. And
mostly, I think there's backlash because like they'll put out posts just like about the like random games that work on these consoles, and you know, it doesn't seem like they're talking to the community as much. It seems like there's some backlash that way, but I have no arguments in regards to the quality of the
and honestly, I've never come across anything where I was like, oh, that seems really shitty. Like I haven't looked into it enough, but I'm like, this doesn't seem like anything that's worth like not paying attention to what they're releasing and buying it if I want one. You know, it's not like, oh, they seem like such a terrible company, I can't support them.
No,
like it's nothing on that level. Yeah.
No, most of the software and the FPGA emulation that they released with their systems was developed in-house by this like super developer guy that they hired.
Okay.
You know, so it's like, I don't even think there's a lot of that compared to some other emulator
if that's
systems.
the case, then that's crazy. I almost am surprised to hear that. Maybe I just misread and skimmed the backlash in a wrong fashion. But if that's the case, it's like, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Most of that stuff is open source as it is, so it's like the emulator stuff because it has to be by nature. So it's like,
yes.
Yeah, I get the being like, hey, you know, if you're just using it to like kind of promote your device that runs it, but I don't know. Where's the fine line, you know?
They put it in the container that is exactly what someone like me wants, you know, for ease of access and modern features, you know.
Exactly, because I don't want to have to jump on my computer and, you know, boot up a bunch of crap and whatever just to play an old retro game. I just want to play it, you know, especially if I own it already on a cartridge. I just want to play it.
And it's close to like, you know, accurate, maybe even with special features as possible.
Yeah, with rewind or save states or whatever.
Or like with the NES one, the ability to, there's less of the like flickering because they could do double the sprites on like a given horizontal line.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they could do stuff like that. Yeah.
No wonder that NES one's a little pricier.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that it had that feature. That's cool.
Yeah, think of like Super Dodgeball without as much flicker, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah, because that game's like almost unplayable. Like I love that game, but it's like, oh man, this is rough stuff. And that would make it a lot better. Because I've even played some emulator, like you know how some NES games like Kirby's Adventures, one that has like that white bar on like the side of the screen. Yeah. Like I've played some that kind of let you trim that out, or it like lines it up right where it just like that can kind of take you out of a game sometimes when it's just like, oh, there's this little visual bug going on at like, at the right time, it can just look weird enough where it's like, whatever, is this working right? So I was like, even just that, just clean up the visuals a little.
Yep, and it'll let you do that. Like, same with Genesis. Often there'll be like kind of some garbage at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
And they'll let you kind of trim that to a certain point,
I love that, yeah.
Yeah.
God. I should have just bought every analog console the day they released.
That costs a good chunk of dough to get
well
to
over $1,000 at this point. I mean, that NES one was $500 alone. So.
Yeah, that was a hard swallow to do that one. I'd pass it up a couple of times before I finally pulled the trigger on the last run. That's where I was with that one.
That's honestly probably the only reason I've been able to hold off up to now is because like it was enough of an initial like, I'm never going to be able to afford these, or that's too much to spend on these. Like, even though the ones after have been cheaper, I'm still just like, but I can't get the whole collection because I'm never going to buy that NES one for $500 and it's not even made anymore.
They should just do a cheaper one of that, to be honest.
I'm surprised they haven't, actually. Yeah,
I would be totally fine with that too. Just do a $200 version of that. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, especially since it seems like they could just kind of do the same thing they've been doing with all the other ones, but just with the NES, and they already have the meat of it down. Just make it simplify it a little bit.
Pretty much perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but what do you got going on the rest of this weekend?
I got swim class for
nice.
For Fiona. That's probably about it. And otherwise, just kind of doing the gaming thing,
some basketball, whatnot. Yeah,
basketball, video games, swim class. That's pretty much the plan.
Yeah, that's pretty much my plan, minus the swim class. So I'll sub in some tennis, maybe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping to play tomorrow. I tried going yesterday, and it was just like, it wasn't cold, but it was like just cold enough. Like the court was like in the shade that I was playing at, and it's just like, it's just like, I don't know if you get like this, but my ears start like really hurting when I'm out in the cold. If it's like got that chill in the air.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Start going numb. Like,
I know what you're talking about.
Headache. So I was like, I'm just not gonna fight it. Like, because that's the easiest way to then be like, last time I played tennis, I felt like shit, so I'm not gonna play anymore. It's like I gotta just lean into it, do it when it makes sense.
Get that headband, just cover your ears or something. Or I don't know,
it's not a bad idea. Yeah, that's how I used to play actually on the tennis team. I always had the headband to like keep my hair out of the way.
Yeah,
but it might actually not be a bad idea for the ears too.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Do what you got to do.
Thinking. Yeah, because I do love that. It's just fun. I miss playing tennis.
Yeah, it's good. Tennis is good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun.